Alright, happy Sunday. It is time for a bit of a rant about privacy, and I have a very great yet unfortunate example here of why using free software is so important. Okay, so I want you to go to a search engine, any search engine, and type in your real name and your address, okay? And see how many results pop up of different websites cataloging all of your identity information, okay? Everything from name and address linked back to email and phone number, names of relatives, social media possibly, all sorts of other stuff that you do not want just freely accessible, freely aggregated into one place, floating around the web. And the problem is, as much as this free information is available, you can also pay to get even more information on these sites, okay? And I probably don't need to tell you why this is such a huge problem and why this is a nightmare for privacy, okay? And beyond just privacy, this is a dream for criminals, essentially. I mean, it's all the information they need aggregated into one place. Now, the good news here is you can actually get that information removed if you go through to these sites and submit opt-out requests. They pretty much always comply with removing your information, at least in my experience. I think in some states they're even legally required to comply and remove your information if you request it. I think in California that's the case. But even if you're in a state where they're not legally required to comply, they generally still do, and I've been removing my information from these sites for several years now. And you might be thinking, well, Brad, I thought you use free and open source software, and you're trying to do everything correctly when it comes to privacy. And I would say, yes, I have tried to do everything correctly, and still, my data is out there. Okay, and I would bet for a lot of you who also think that you are doing everything correctly, your data is still out there. Maybe not everybody, maybe some of you are in total ghost mode right now, but I would bet more than a handful of you are now shocked and scared that your data is just sitting there on these websites, just freely accessible for anybody who, Googles your first name, last name, and city of residence, okay? And obviously this is a huge problem, these data broker websites, and there are plenty of other problems of your data essentially being stolen and then either sold or published or companies retaining it when they shouldn't. And I'm guessing I'm sort of preaching to the choir here when it comes to people who care about privacy. I'm guessing some of you probably already knew about these data broker websites. Some of you may have also been religiously keeping track of your data and making sure that it gets taken down from these sites. I'm guessing some of you probably didn't know about these sites, and some of you are probably now going to go and take your information down. Go do it. Anyways, so even if you are, trying your best to do all of the right things in terms of using free software and, you've got a custom ROM on your phone so that you can load in free software to your phone, you may still have data floating around, and that's unfortunately just a consequence of living in the modern world. And there's a lot of, depressing reality in terms of how data is handled and how data is sold and how little privacy we have in 2025. And I wanted to reference a video that Luke Smith made several years ago. I don't know if it was a singular video or multiple videos, but I remember, there was something like him talking in the woods as usual and essentially saying, like, if you want total privacy, you cannot use the internet. If you're on the internet, you're just not going to have complete privacy, no matter how many things you do correctly and how seriously you take your privacy. You are just not going to have total privacy if you're on the internet. The only way to get, full privacy is to throw away your phone, throw away your computers, and, go move into a cabin in the woods or something like that, right? And as much as that's such a doomer mindset to have, a really defeatist mindset, the problem is he's right, okay? That's the problem. And I would almost take what he's said a step further and say, if you're gonna be living in modern society at all, if you're in a first world country, you really can't have privacy the way you might have been able to 100 or 200 years ago. It's just not possible. Even if you disconnect yourself from the internet as much as possible, you've never even had social media, you're still gonna have data out there just because of what you have to do to live in modern society, right? A lot of things that are just going to be, parts of life that you have to do are going to involve giving your government data and giving companies and services that you essentially need data. And, we could argue all day long about what you really need and what you really don't need. You could make an argument, oh, I don't need to go to the DMV and get a driver's license and give them, photo identification there. That's not needed in life. And okay, sure, you could, go Amish and not need any of those things. That is possible, I guess. But for 99.9% of us, that's not going to happen. And then we end up in the situation of still trying to do the right thing in terms of privacy, but yet there's data everywhere, and all these companies have so much data on us. Big tech has data on us, and there's data brokers with data on us, and it's kind of this just dystopian nightmare. And to top it off, we are feeding people who don't know any better stupid VPN ads and YouTube sponsorships about VPNs that are supposedly going to protect their privacy, even though when these people buy VPNs, they're just essentially giving up their data to the VPN companies. And, that's just another consequence and a huge problem of the idea of privacy going mainstream. It's kind of a mainstream thing now to care about your privacy, or at least to have the knowledge that all these companies have so much data on you, and you can't do a thing about it, and anything that's free you're just paying for with your data, and all that sort of stuff. That has become news headlines. It's become politicized, and everybody kind of knows about that now. And well, the result of everybody knowing is that privacy is pretty much an industry now, and you have companies that are essentially selling the idea of privacy to people. These VPN companies that are, sponsoring all these YouTube videos, okay? Everybody finds these VPN sponsorships annoying, but I think it's worse than annoying. I think it is actively misleading people who don't know any better, people who might not have the technical knowledge of what they're actually doing when using a VPN, okay? And this is not saying that there's no use case for VPNs. Of course, there are uses for VPNs. There's real uses for VPNs. But if you're, getting fooled into buying a VPN subscription so that, the government can't spy on me, or something like that, or, so that your ISP can't see what subreddits you're browsing, or, stuff like that, that people are essentially getting misled into buying VPNs from companies that are then going to sell all their data to data brokers, and beyond just their browsing data, they're also going to sell, all the information that they use to sign up for this VPN with when you're, giving your real name and your address and your phone number to this VPN company, okay? Anyways, so that part of the rant aside, you might look at everything and say, okay, this is just a dystopian nightmare. I can't do anything about it, my hands are tied, I should just bury my head in the sand and do nothing. And as much as it's easy to accept defeat and have that mentality, I think that is doing both yourself a disservice and everybody in the future a disservice. Because the problem is, if it's this bad right now, how bad is it going to be if nobody does anything about it and it just gets worse and worse and worse, okay? If you think it's a dystopian nightmare right now, it's going to be a heck of a lot worse in 100 years if nobody does anything about it. So I think everybody should be trying to care about their privacy, okay? No matter what form that takes for you, no matter what reasoning you have for caring about your privacy, it is worth caring about. And, if for no other reason than to protect yourself from having your identifying information just sitting there freely accessible on the web. Okay, and my own personal approach to privacy is looking at what are the biggest fish to fry here. What are the things that are just out there that are going to have the biggest impact, okay? And for me, one of those things is obviously, my data being on data broker sites, and that's why I go through and religiously remove it, because for me, I could see that as having a huge impact, okay? That's going to be a lot more impactful than, Joe Random Company retaining some data on me that they could use to, serve me ads or something, right? And, I would suggest approaching privacy with the mindset of, okay, what is going to be something small that I can do that's going to have a huge impact on my privacy? And then once I've taken care of those, small things with a huge impact, what can I then do after that to, help stem the flow, right? If I've mopped up this puddle of data that's sitting there, what can I then do to stem the flow of the data? And, that would be switching away from the services that are selling your data and trying to switch to free and open source software as much as possible, etc. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this rather depressing video, but I don't know. Go remove your data from data broker sites. Have a good rest of your Sunday. See you next time. Peace.